Well, hi, and welcome back to JenTalks. And as I've been talking about, giving you this video for a while now about letting go. And wanted to start by sharing that usually the talks that I think about delivering are the ones that cause me the most amount of discomfort in my own life. And so, because I've already faced that challenge and somewhat overcame it, it's like I like to share then, I suppose, the wisdom and even some of the tools that I've used. So it's not that I'm coming on talking about all these things because they're so easy. I'm talking about them because they are common challenges for a lot of people in life. Not everybody. I know some people that just sail through life and they just go to the next phase and the next phase and the next phase, and it just happens so easily for them. But for most of us, we struggle with the idea of change. And I suppose I'd like to liken it to the seasons, the way we're constantly changing. But if you were to take yourself back to being a child, take yourself back to a childhood memory, maybe one of your earliest memories, 5, 6. Doesn't have to be like super early, like a 2-year-old, if you're lucky enough to be able to remember that young. It could just be, an age when you were in like a junior school, maybe primary school, whatever, like 6, 7, 8 years of age works for you. And try and remember yourself as a person. The things you liked, what kind of clothes you might have wore, the friends you might have had, the kind of things you like to do. And imagine your life just stopping at that stage. You're just stunting everything at that stage and going, okay, maybe your favorite color was yellow. Like, imagine for the rest of your life that stayed exactly the same. So you couldn't have any other favorite color. You couldn't have any other hobbies or interests. You can't have any different friends. You got to live in exactly the same neighborhood. You got to eat the same foods. Imagine how dull and boring life would be. It might be safe. It might even be happier, but imagine how dull and boring it would be. We would become so bored at the predictability of that. So for that reason, life is constantly changing. And it is the one and only constant in life that things are all the time changing. It doesn't mean it's easier, makes it any easier for us knowing that, but it's a fact. And it reminds you of that expression, like change is always messy in the beginning, no, hard at first, messy in the middle, but worth it in the end. Now, they're words, of course, and when we're going through change, those words aren't very much help to us, because it's that difficult at the start part that we have to kind of lean into to get us to the messy part and to the worth it in the end part. And part of change, and I'll be talking about this more on my next Gen Talk. I'm going to be talking to you about the idea of that part of the beginning, which is what I call the hump, how to get over that hump. But for today, I want to focus it on the part of change, which is letting go. So letting go of maybe a job, a relationship, a friendship, an idea of yourself, like a perception, an identity that you might have, a habit. And that is sometimes the hardest part for us. So it's about understanding our relationship with that. So I thought I would use an analogy that's so prevalent today, because where I am in Ireland, in Dublin, the weather has just like totally defined the analogy that I'm going to use for you today. And it's about the storms and the stormy weather, and in particularly the effect that has on the trees around us. So first of all, the season that we're in is autumn. As I'm making this video, it's autumn. And as I'm making this video, there's a huge storm in Ireland. So it's like, it couldn't be more powerful from the point of view of an analogy. So first of all, I want to talk to you about the trees in autumn and how the trees protect themselves in autumn by, first of all, changing the color of their leaves and then by shedding the leaves. So the first thing that happens is the tree, in order for it to keep its energy, stops feeding the leaves in autumn. So instead of them being these beautiful green leaves, they change from green to yellow and orange and red. And that's because the food that's normally sent to them, which is chlorophyll, makes them the color green, stops going towards the ends of the branches and feeding the leaves, because the tree knows that in winter it doesn't need to have so many leaves on its branches, and in order for it to survive the winter it actually needs to feed itself first. That's an interesting analogy, isn't it? Where have we heard that before? You got to feed yourself first. So the tree understands it's going through it's going to face some very tough weather, it's going to face some challenging times, and it needs to buckle down and batten down the hatches and feed itself first. So it keeps its food for itself. And because then the leaves change different colors, then they start to shed. And we start to let go of things in our life that is no longer serving us. It could be people, it could be places, it could be events, it could be habits, attitudes. It can even be material possessions. And if they're no longer serving you, and what I mean by that, there's a really simple question that I ask myself like daily when I think about, things, are they serving me or not serving me? Just to say, is my life richer or better for this person, place, or item being in it or not? So is it making me richer? Is it making me not richer? Is it making me happier? Is it making me unhappy? So look at it from that lens and say to yourself, okay, in the long term, is this thing making me happier or not? And that's when you can choose what it is that you need to declutter. It can be an awful lot of the time. For me, it's materialistic stuff. Like, do I really need to have 20 winter coats? Do I need to have 4 pairs of winter boots? Do I need to have, so many photographs lying around the place, or whatever it might be? And then we can decide, okay, if it's difficult for you to let go of things, look at it from the point of view of the tree holding on to their own chlorophyll, holding on to their own food and strength, so that they can let the leaves fall off the trees. And the reason why the leaves fall off the trees is because in the winter, when the storm comes, if it's going to be heavy rain, heavy wind, or snow, the leaves can make the tree a liability. They can weigh the tree down and make it more susceptible to damage, and possibly to destroy the tree completely. So if they don't shed the leaves in the autumn, the tree is putting itself at risk of not surviving the winter. So sometimes when we go through phases in our life, it can be different stages of our life where we grow up. It could be different choices that we make. We might decide to cut certain things out of our lives. Maybe we go into recovery. Maybe we decide to become more positive. Maybe we decide to maybe we just actually grow. Growing in itself can cause us to shed people, places, or things based on our new level of growth that we have. And each time we have a little growth spurt, sometimes the people or places or things in our lives don't grow at the same pace of us, and they get left behind, or we choose to let them go. And at each stage of that, of course, it's so difficult. It's even for me, like I say, when I work with my students, and sometimes I could work with them. I mean, I had a group of women this year that I worked with for 6 months. And when it came to the end of their course, it was so difficult to kind of, at the thought of saying goodbye. So actually, one of my students sent me a lovely quote, and I hope I don't destroy it. So shout out to John. Thank you for the quote you sent me. And it's like, the reward for being brave enough to say goodbye is the possibility of new adventures and new doors opening. And I know I haven't said it word for word, but that's the gist of it. And I thought, yeah, that's so beautiful, because we can't keep everything that we ever had as we go through life. If you thought about like everything that you had in life going into like a plastic bag, and you plod along through life, and then you have more things, and then you have more people, and you have more adventures and more items and more, and you keep carrying and carrying and carrying. If you are continuing to grow, at some point, the clothes, the items, the places, the people, they might just not fit anymore. So in order for us to grow, we have to shed as we continue on our path in life. So a part of that journey is making peace with that, because otherwise we never get to really fully grow into what it is that we are, I suppose, put here to do. So sometimes, I come across this a lot in the coaching clients. People say hit their 30s, and then all of a sudden they're thinking like they don't really connect with their friends so much anymore because maybe some of their friends have gone off and have families and they haven't, or vice versa. And part of growing up is understanding that people that you have on your journey are not necessarily for all of your journey, all of your life. At some point, they might go on a separate journey. And you know what? You may reconnect back in with them people later in life. It's not that they have to be gone forever. You just keep heading in your path and understand that for now, they might not be serving you on your journey. And maybe if they grow with you, they can come back and join you again. And also, we're not just talking about people, because people for me is the toughest one. But also, we've got, places where you tended to go a lot. Um, could be a certain bar, it could be a certain club, it could be a certain activity that you constantly did when you were younger. It's okay to grow out of that. It's okay, even hobbies, things that you thought that were so amazing in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s might not feel that amazing anymore. And of course, if that also belongs to a group of people, it can be difficult to let go of. But you really have to kind of do a declutter on your life from the point of view of all of the things, the people, the places, the activities, the items. I mean, Mary Kudo, when she does, does it spark joy? It's the same thing. Is, are these items, are these people, places, events, things in my life sparking joy for me at the moment? And if not, do I need to take a step back? Do I need to let them go? And understanding that letting go is a natural part of life. And like, if you want the analogy of the trees and how they shed their leaves in the autumn so that they can be strong enough to survive the winter. And then the last analogy that I want to take you back to before we close on this is the idea that the trees, as they come through the storms, become stronger and more resilient. So yes, we've had our storms in life, and God knows we can't stop the storms, but we can look after ourselves so that we are strong enough to have our roots firmly planted into the ground and resilient enough to survive the storms. But each storm that comes brings its own level of strength, our own depth of strength. So the more storms that you've weathered through your life, the stronger and more resilient you become. So when you think about a decision that you need to make around letting someone, something, some item, some activity, think of letting it go and shedding it, that it might feel like it doesn't fit anymore in your life. It doesn't feel like it's serving you anymore. Lean into, of course, the difficulty at the start and the messiness in the middle. But remember that it genuinely will be worth it in the end, because all growth and change always is. Okay, so I hope that was helpful for you this week. I'll see you be back. I won't be back now, not next week. It'll be 2 more weeks before the next one. And I will be talking about that relationship with change and that idea of that lump at the beginning, what I call the hump. Getting over the hump is what the next Gen Talk is going to be on. So I look forward to chatting to you about that. In the meantime, you know where I am. If you want to private message me or contact me in any way, all my details are on my channel and my website. And I look forward to connecting with you again. So stay safe and be happy and well. And I'll see you all very soon. Thanks again for joining me this week on Gen Talks.